Hi, I'm Ilona Varo, and I am so grateful that you're here for the Thrive Through the Holidays podcast. I am here with my good friend, Dr. Soheila Hosseini, and we are going to be chatting about how to handle depression, loneliness, and kind of those heavier, darker moods that can really come up around the holidays, especially when there's so much pressure to make it the most wonderful time of the year, which it might not be for some. So, please give us a little intro of who you are in your practice, and then we will dive right in.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for inviting me. And I'm looking forward to have this chat as many of my patients, many people that I know really sometimes struggle through the holidays. I'm Dr. Soheila. I'm a licensed psychologist practicing in Santa Monica, California, and I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, wonderful. So, one of the things that really comes up is loneliness and
Mhm.
just the heightened feelings of loneliness and the pressure to make it like a really happy holiday season.
Right.
How do you guide your patients through those kinds of challenges?
Absolutely. So, before we start, I'd really like to give a little bit of statistic about holidays and what happens for a lot of people, a lot of Americans. American Psychological Association conducted a study last year around November 2023 about the impact of holiday on people. They conducted a survey, and what they found was that 89% of people report that they feel overwhelmed during the holiday, regardless of them having any mental health issues or not. So this is a very common issue and common problem for a lot of people. And nearly half of those people, 49% of them, reported that their stress goes up and is increased to a moderate level, and about 24% reported that their stress really increases during holidays. So this is not only for people that feel lonely on a general basis. Most people really do experience the overwhelm of holiday. But at the same time, a lot of people reported that they do feel happy, they look forward to the holidays, but at the same time, a lot of people feel overwhelmed about it. And another study was done, and 64% of people in that study that had mental health illnesses reported that um, holidays make their um, mental health, whatever they're struggling with, whether it's depression or anxiety, it makes it a lot worse. So we know that people that are struggling, they struggle even more during the holiday. So in terms of loneliness, one of the most important factors that I always discuss with my patient is how is loneliness is impacting you in the first place? What does that mean for you? And kind of inquire about what are their coping skill when they feel lonely, regardless of it being holiday or not.
Mm.
And then we go from there. What are some of the things that you can do in terms of connecting with people that are like-minded, especially in the current climate where, we just had an election, there are political issues that are happening around the world. Since we have differences of opinion, that actually isolates some people. So what I truly encourage is to connect with people that are like-minded. First and foremost, keep that in mind, that the holidays are about gratitude, about knowing and keeping in mind what you have to be grateful about, rather than just wanting to see people, wanting to connect with them. It's about gratitude. It's about saying thank you for everything that we have. So connect with people that you're very much like-minded, and that you can have common conversation and common interest. That's the first place to really start the community that you have that's around you.
Mhm. Yeah, and I imagine there's people listening that are automatically going to, I have nothing to be grateful for, or I don't
Right,
have anyone in my life. And I
right,
think that that's often a perspective that we
right,
need to challenge because
right,
most likely, regardless of the situation, there is always something
right,
to find to be grateful for or to have a point of connection. And it might not be a grandiose, great life event or circumstance or thing or access, but there's usually always something to be grateful for. And this is where working
right.
with a professional can come in handy to challenge
Absolutely.
negative automatic thinking and help people sift through, shift perspective.
Absolutely.
Would you have anything to add to that where people might be stuck in a really like just
Right.
bleak state of mind?
Right, right. So it's all about the lens that you have, you're looking at the world. Sometimes this mindset of I don't have anything to be grateful for, or inflexibility, what we call it inflexibility, it's something that you can definitely challenge, right? It doesn't have to be change or modify. You can challenge it. Some of the questions that you can ask yourself, I call this self therapy. You can challenge your own mindset in the moment. For example, if you have this feeling of I don't have anybody, I don't have anything to be grateful for, just take a step back and say, is that true? Is that really the fact of my life? If is that the fact of my current situation where I'm standing and sitting right now? You have to be able to kind of challenge some of these thoughts that come to your mind. Otherwise, we call them automatic negative thoughts, right? They keep coming back, and it's a story that we make about our lives. And at some point, we believe it. So
Yeah.
it's really important to take a step back and be mindful in the moment and ask yourself that question: is this really true? And
Yeah.
if it's true, fine, that's the truth of that moment. But most of the time, what my patient report to me is that when I ask that question of myself, and there is a neuroscientific perception behind this recommendation that I have. We have the prefrontal cortex where thoughts are processed, and then we have our limbic system where emotions are processed, and we have the bottom of our brain where all of our action and behavior is processed, and they're all connected. And it's very automatic. This transfer of information is very automatic. But the minute that you take some space between that immediate feeling and immediate thought and the action that you're going to take, it changes a lot of things. And we actually know that. We see that when we put people under fMRI machine, we see that pause. It really impacts the way that their brain is processes information. So
Hmm.
that pause is so, so important. Don't believe every thought that comes to your mind. If
Yeah.
it's, I don't have anything to be grateful for, take a step back, take a pause, and ask yourself different questions. Okay, what is this true? Is this fact? What about my cat? What about my pet? What about there's so many things that you can think of in that moment. So
Yeah.
don't forget the pause. Instead of reacting to that feeling that you have, you want to make sure that you're responding to it rather than reacting. And the
Yeah.
more that you do this, you build that muscle of it's not a reaction anymore, rather it's responding to these feelings and thoughts that come to your mind.
Yeah, beautifully put. It's always about interrupting the
That's
habit, the automatic thinking, the automatic
right,
urge, the mindless behavior that we're just
right,
caught in the loop of. Pause and interruption is and
right,
challenging the automatic is
right,
such an amazing skill. And
right.
even I like to add the word, 100%. Is it 100% true? Because
Yeah,
sometimes even the black and white, like, is it true? Yes. Like if we're in a
right,
rigid state of mind, yes, automatically we're
right,
going to it. But is it 100% true?
right,
Maybe that can kind of help people create a pause too, and just
Absolutely.
we're literally just trying to expand the lens just a little
Absolutely.
bit wider, a little bit deeper than
Mhm.
what you were
Right.
used to.
Right. And going back to what you said earlier about, holidays and what happens during the holiday, it's not all or, none. It's not black and white.
Yeah,
You see your family, some family members you're really happy to see them, but some family members you're not so happy to see them. So it's not really black and white.
yeah,
Just take a moment to connect with those family members that you have some things in common and you're happy to see them and lean toward them. So thank you for mentioning that. This black and white thinking sometimes can perpetuate the loneliness. That uncle that always challenges me is coming to dinner, so I don't want to go. So it could be that I want to see, my cousins. I haven't seen them in a while and I want to connect with them. So it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be black and white. You could look at that, family gathering as a time and opportunity to connect with the people and the family members that you actually like. Doesn't have to be love, like, and that you connect with them. And then set boundaries with other people that you feel, you don't want to have a conversation with, and really firm. You have to be firm with those boundaries as well.
yeah.
But we can definitely talk more about that.
That was on my list of questions, is how can
Yeah.
someone set healthy boundaries with family and friends that might, be triggering or stressful? What are some tips for setting boundaries?
Absolutely. Um, I always tell my patients that if you set boundaries, but you don't hold them,
Yeah,
you haven't set any
yeah.
boundaries. It's
Setting
the
the boundary is not
right,
enough, just staying
right.
in once.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if you set a boundary, but you're not holding your boundaries, then you're setting up, you lose your credibility, for a lack of better word. You
Great. Yeah.
lose your credibility. And people learn to challenge those boundaries and not respect them over time. So first you have to know, what are my boundaries? What are my values? What are some of the things that I need to, I care about? What are my wants and needs? So you have to first know that. What is it that you want? What are your values? And then based on those, define your boundaries. I don't want to talk about politics. Politics is not something that, interests me at this time. But you have to know what those values and those needs and wants are. Once you know them, we set the boundary. And I have, I always, again, I tell my patients, when you set boundaries, you want to be kind, you want to be gentle, but you want to be firm. So
Mhm.
kind, gentle, firm.
Mhm.
If you create conflict around your boundaries, again, that it doesn't people become defensive, and once your audience is defensive, they can't really hear you. So it's really important to be kind and to be gentle. And if it's your parent or your partner, you want to be loving but firm,
Mhm.
right? So I always add that, loving for partner and parents that you're very close with. And when you're kind and gentle but firm with people, they really do respect that boundary. But it may require repeating that, right? You have to keep repeating it with the same tone of voice, with the same loving voice, with the same compassionate approach. People really do respect that if you keep saying the same thing and reinforcing and reminding them of your boundaries. Most people respond, especially it's family. They want to have fun with you, they want to get closer to you. So if you keep repeating those boundaries, they will respect it. But once you don't, then they
Mhm.
know they can challenge you.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
keeping that in mind is very important. And start small. Don't, you could always, the first step can be very, something that's small and simple, but
Yeah.
then you can build up on that.
Yeah. And I would even add using I, me, my
Right.
statements instead
Absolutely.
of you always want to bring this up, and it like
Right.
I would prefer not to talk about that this
Exactly.
time. I would,
Right.
you know, my perspective is that we should stay away from that conversation. Like staying with I, me, my
Right.
statements. And I even encourage people to practice, rehearse,
Yeah.
we're most likely not going to be caught off guard. We've been around our families, we've been around
Right,
our friends, we know what holiday gatherings look like by
right,
this time in our lives. And so
right,
set an expectation for yourself and practice what boundaries you want to set and how you want to say them. That is the best thing you
right,
can do because if you think you're going to have the most eloquent boundary on the spot when you're triggered, that's
right,
probably too high of an expectation.
right, right.
But
That's a
if you
great idea.
rehearsed it a million times, it'll
Mhm.
just roll off your tongue and it'll help you stay regulated as well instead of like grasping for the right words in the moment.
Absolutely, absolutely. That's a great idea. Rehearsing. If you're working with a therapist, you could definitely rehearse it with your therapist or on your own. That's a great, great idea. You're absolutely right. When a family member is saying something that creates some sort of feeling in you, so it becomes a lot more difficult to come up with words in the moment. So
Yeah.
rehearsing it is it's a great idea. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
absolutely. Absolutely.
And we kind of touched on this, but navigating, specific triggers, do you have any tips for how people can identify and navigate holiday specific triggers?
Absolutely. The first thing is to be intentional about what are your goals with going into these holiday gatherings. If it's a family dinner or if it's, that you're seeing friends, you have to be very intentional with what your goal is from these gatherings. Do you want to connect? Do you want to be, do you want to have fun? Do you want to create, laughter with your family? If you know why you're going into this, if someone is, triggering you, or if they're saying something that might trigger you, you would have a better opportunity to manage that. And I use the word manage very intentionally. You can't control anyone, you can't control yourself. It's all about management of your feelings and your emotion. So be intentional and be mindful with why you're seeing your family, why you're engaging in holiday activities and seeing everyone. I think that would be very helpful to manage the triggers, before even going to these events. And also remember, yeah, we have to remember that everybody is different than us. Everyone has a different perspective on issues. Everyone has their own challenges. So compassionate mindset, I think, is really an empathic mindset is very helpful. Well, that's their ideas, what they're believing in. I have to be able to manage what is happening for me. Other people are not responsible for our triggers. We are. So there is an accountability that we have to keep in mind. But at the same time, really keeping distance, setting boundaries, making sure that you're not taking what other people say personal. It's their own stuff that they have to go through. So you can kind of keep some emotional distance, even if you're close to them physically.
Yeah.
That emotional distance can save you in so many situations.
Yeah. So I
Yeah,
think the theme really is plan in advance,
absolutely.
prepare, rehearse, and
Absolutely.
observation of the self also make it a
Right,
practice to witness
right,
what's happening in your thoughts, in your behavioral urges, in your emotions, really staying connected to your own experience so that you can manage and respond.
right,
That's the probably the best skill is
right, right.
observation. And
Absolutely.
I'd add also non-judgmental observation, right?
Absolutely. Right,
So,
right. And taking a break, Lana, I think is so important to take breaks, if it's again family gathering, or if you're taking time off from work, taking breaks is really, really important. Making sure that during that breaks you're breathing, you're paying attention, just like you said, to your own emotions, what's happening for you internally. You don't have to be there all the time. You can take a break, definitely, and plan some fun activities with be the one that suggests fun things to do. Let's
yeah,
go for a walk. Let's do family game. Some of these things I think can be definitely helpful.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
Initiate and set an intention and be proactive instead
Right,
of just sitting there and going with whatever is happening around
right,
you. Maybe
right,
going with the intention or bring a game
absolutely.
or
Right,
there's so many great question
right,
card decks available that I think is just a great way to open up conversation that might be
right,
challenging to bring up otherwise.
right.
Yeah, that's a great point. Well, thank you so much for
Of
sharing all
course,
of these
yeah.
tips. I think everything is, it makes sense. Thank you for validating the fact that this
Mhm.
is a very common
Absolutely.
challenge during this season. I mean,
Mhm.
89% of the population, that's
Right,
massive. And then
absolutely.
breaking that down to half of that and then a quarter
Right,
of that, with specific triggers and challenges. I think that hopefully that's also really helpful for people to know that,
absolutely,
I mean, you're not alone, right? Like that's usually the
absolutely.
most awful feeling is when we're
Right,
thinking that I'm the only one going through this and everyone else is having a great
I
time and
understand. Right, right,
blowing through the holidays. So
right.
thank you for
No,
really
of course,
bringing that.
absolutely. Absolutely. It is a challenging time, but it's also a very fun time of the year. And the last thing that I would like to add is if you're the one who, is not struggling and you have a friend or family member that you think they're struggling, it's always a good idea to be proactive and reach out to them. If you think someone is not going to reach out or they're isolating themselves, find a kind, nice, gentle way to reach out to them that they can, in a way that they can respond and they feel invited and they feel welcome. Because sometimes people isolate themselves and it's on us to kind of reach out. Of course, we have limited amount of time and power and
Yeah.
influence,
Yeah.
but it's always it's a good idea to reach out to those people as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. Empathetically, just kind of,
Absolutely.
you're not poking them, but
Right,
you're just
right,
kind of standing next to them and saying, I'm
exactly.
here if you want any
Right.
kind of support.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so
Of
much. And I
course,
know we
thank
didn't get into it, but you offer a variety of different services in your practice,
yes.
TMS, and, that's also another great way to maybe plan ahead and really help your brain kind of shift, make new neural pathways and connections.
Absolutely.
So
Right,
I'll be
right.
sure to tag you in the video if people
Thank
want to
you.
reach out and get more information about your practice.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me here.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I hope you have a great holiday with your
You
family.
too. Thank you so much.
Thank
Have a
you.
great day.
You
Talk
too.
to you soon. Bye-bye.